and let us all do we can to build a better future.
To end up like the French monarchy. You would think he would be a student of history and be aware of what's happening in his country. But again, he is continuing on this path of self-destruction. And so the people of France, what I want to say to you, in the off chance we have any hard lens media viewers in the nation of France, be you in the large metropolitan cities or the nice, beautiful small town areas in the French countryside, what you are witnessing is what Americans go through every single day with our politicians. And that is, your politicians are trying to take away everything that your workers have worked hard to maintain. And you cannot relent at any point in time. Now, Americans, we don't have social safety nets. We don't have Medicare for all. We don't have universal health care. We don't have affordable college and retirement. Retirement. What is that word? Hell, we have medical bankruptcy in the United States. People of France, if your politicians were given the opportunities, the same opportunities our politicians have here in America to screw over the people of France, your politicians will do it. And you cannot relent. Your leadership cannot relent. None of you can relent, because as soon as you start behaving, as soon as you compromise, your politicians next year and the year after will start chipping away at all of your social benefits, all of your health care, all of your retirement plans. They will do that to you. I want to pull up this video here from Case Study QB as, again, the French protests continue on. And the thing is, especially to my fellow countrymen here in America, while we're protesting the piss beer of Anheuser-Busch, Bud Light, however which way you want to talk it. I mean, again, it is a mediocre brand beer. People are protesting over that. The people of France are fighting to make sure that they're not retiring at the age of 64, because at age 62. Because let's face it, people of France, if your politicians could raise the retirement age to, I don't know, past 64 to maybe 67, 68, 69, 70, hell, they could go to the moon. We should be doing the same thing here of how we've been screwed over by our system. But no, people need to protest the beer, a disgusting beer brand on top of that.
Prime Minister is vowing more reforms in the coming months, just hours after President Emmanuel Macron signed the extremely unpopular pension reform plan into law to push the age for drawing a pension to 64. And as promised by union leaders and others, the anti-pension reform demonstrations continued on Saturday, with police detaining some of the protesters. CNN's Nada Bashir has more now from Paris.
Well, despite the fierce backlash this new legislation has received, President Emmanuel Macron wasted no time in signing it into law. This comes after weeks of deliberation by France's Constitutional Council and weeks of protests by union members and other demonstrators against the proposal by the government to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Now, of course, the Constitutional Council has given the green light to the core of this new legislation. They're striking down 6 minor measures included in the proposal. President Emmanuel Macron has now extended an invitation to union heads to meet with him at the Elysee next Tuesday, though the head of one of France's largest unions has already rejected this invitation and is calling for more protests, particularly on May 1st, which is traditionally Labor Day here in France. The head of the CGT union calling for historic protests to take place against this new law. And of course, we have seen mass protests in Paris and across France, in fact, over the last 12 weeks. On Thursday, 380,000 people taking to the streets across the country, some 42,000 here in Paris alone. And of course, while these protests have been largely peaceful, there were pockets of violence, some scuffles reported between the police and protesters. Police later having to use tear gas to disperse.
Now, CNN is showing you some very tame images of what's happening to the protesters. But I have a video that was shared by Jimmy Dore, which I'll be playing very soon. Viewer discretion is going to be advised, because it's difficult to see a lot of these protesters, these women especially, be violently assaulted by the police in France. And so, again, people of France, you compromise. You allow them to raise your retirement age. You're opening the door for them to take away everything else. I know, an American telling you what to do. But this is one of these rare times where I know I am correct in this statement. Do you want what we have here in America, people of France? The answer is no. No, you don't. No, you don't. Take a good long look at the, well, social benefits here in America. Oh, that's right. There are none. We have nothing here. Our healthcare is tied to our jobs. Hell, our retirement age is age 67, but yet it's so bad here in our country that we have people who are in their 80s and 90s being Walmart greeters. That's a very difficult thing to watch and look at. It's something I hate to see because that old person should be enjoying their golden years, their twilight years before they leave this hellscape called planet Earth. You don't want what we have, people of France. If you relent, there's no telling what else your politicians will do to you.
The crowd at the end of Thursday's process. And in fact, there were small demonstrations on Friday in response to the Constitutional Council's decision. Now, this has been a deeply controversial and deeply unpopular legislation. It has drawn fierce backlash, not only from protesters, but also from opposition leaders. And President Emmanuel Macron himself has faced fierce criticism over his decision to push this legislation through, bypassing the lower house of parliament, where Macron's party crucially doesn't hold an outright majority, and foregoing a final vote. Many of the protesters that we've spoken to over the last week telling us they believe this undermines the fundamental principles of democracy here in France. So while this bill is going ahead, it has had a significant impact on President Macron's popularity, and according to the unions, they expect to see further protests over the coming weeks. Now, the Bashir, CNN, Paris.
Now, look, things aren't going the way Macron expected, but it's quite clear, and it should be very clear to the people of France, that he doesn't want to change anything. So I want to pull up this video here from Jimmy Dore, and I'll look. He retweeted it. It is something very difficult to look at, but it's titled "Cops Gonna Cop: The Amount of Violence the State Uses in Direct Proportion to the Amount of Fear the State Has of Losing Control." The French are protesting raising retirement age to 64 years old. They raise it in the U.S. to 67, and nobody even knows, and they're protesting Bud Light. Again, look, controversial statement. Bud Light is a piss beer, okay? It's mediocre. It wasn't good to begin with. Who cares? All right. They're losing billions of dollars. I don't care. People are protesting the wrong things. People of France, you don't want what we have. Now, again, I want to pull this video up here. It is, again, difficult to watch. If you want to start your morning off right and nice, don't watch this video, but you need to see what's happening here. It's stuff that CNN isn't showing you.
Whoa! On enlève les masques, tout ça. Allez, on enlève. La protection, c'est bon, c'est bon. Enlève tout ça, c'est bon, enlève.
So I must ask, when I look at scenes like this, it is understandable how a revolution took place, or how revolutions get started. Now, these are the law enforcement of France directly assaulting the people because the people are upset at their own government raising the retirement age, something that the people have explicitly stated they didn't want to see happen. Now, these politicians might sit in their little comfortable chairs and talk to people as though they know better, but let's face it, the politicians are all humans too, and they make mistakes. And right here, we're seeing history maybe not repeat itself, but the rhyme is all too similar. And that is, you have politicians abusing their power, causing anger amongst the people, which causes the people to push back. These images that we saw are still ongoing. And you have defenseless people, protesters, being horribly beaten by the law enforcement there. Yes, these images are difficult to look at. They're difficult to watch. But we have to see this firsthand and understand why things are happening. I say this to the people of France. Hey, look, if you want what we have, sit down and don't protest. Don't engage. Let your politicians rob you, because they robbed the American people. But then you'll be just like us. No health care, because trust me, Anna, if your politicians could get rid of your Medicare for all, they're going to do it. If your politicians could raise retirement age to 64 or higher, they're going to do it. If the politicians want to take away all of your social benefits, all your social programs, they're going to do it. All what they need is your silent, obedient consent. Your consent to allow your politicians to walk all over you. Or you stand up and say no more. That's something we here in America have to do. And I don't care if you're a Republican voter, a Democratic voter, libertarian, progressive, socialist, conservative, boomer, Gen Z, Gen Xer, millennial. We're all being screwed over here in this country. And yet we're protesting a beer company. Which is more important? A better future or some booze? Guess in America, we decided to pick the beer. Big brain move. People of France, learn from our mistakes. Because if you don't, you'll be just like us. And I know none of you want that.